Hello and welcome to Outlook Video, your nationally recognized, award-winning LGBTQ TV monthly news magazine. I'm Roberta Gonzalez-Craig. Outlook Video in pre-pandemic COVID-19 times was brought to you via the Create TV studios in San Jose. Though we're now entering more safe, a little more safer and upgraded COVID-19 tiers, we still continue to bring you our safely broadcasts via Zoom. We sincerely hope you, your family, friends, and loved ones are staying safe and well. Francisco Frankie Sapp, Program Director, and Azisa Todd, Lead Trainer and Events Coordinator of the San Mateo Pride Center, recently presented a panel discussion in parallel with National Coming Out Day, just this past October. Outlook Video is pleased to welcome to our guest for this month's show, Azisa Todd, to share the insights with this panel discussion. Welcome, Azisa.
Thank you for having me.
How did you come about selecting these people? Did you ask for volunteers?
Yeah, so when we had our first initial meeting, we were thinking about, what are the type of narratives we wanted to have in this space? And we knew right off the bat that we wanted to have a youth perspective. And we thought about how so many of the events that we've had or like have attended, there is little to no youth representation. And we want to, raise awareness because a lot of, we're seeing a lot of younger generations coming out earlier and earlier. And so having a youth voice there was really important to us. And luckily I'd actually met Kai briefly at an outreach event. And so knowing that they had worked with Safe Space and they shared a little bit about Safe Space before we even had this event, it was like foreshadowing that we were going to have them there. So Coast Pride, specifically Jenny Walters, was really good in outreaching to the youth and seeing who we could all have, as well as Outlet or adolescent and child services. Their folks at Outlet were really good in providing us with some potential youth that were interested in participating. But when we were brainstorming, we were thinking about, we want to have different perspectives. And so we came up with, what about the context of coming out between work, home, and social life? And so from there, we kind of spend some time outlining, who would be some folks that we could reach out to that kind of reflect those narratives. So Frankie had told me about Anna Paula, who has worked with youth, and so sharing a little bit about her narrative, I was like, okay, she seems like a great candidate to reach out to as far as social life. Also honoring that even though we had these categories in place, we knew that we wanted to find participants where there would be some overlap. So in selecting Cam, Anna Paula, and Kai, and meeting with them individually before the event, I got a chance to hear their narratives, and they also were able to share their own narratives with each other. And that, I think that really helped, paves the way for the panel. Oftentimes when we have panels, they kind of, are selected and then they don't meet beforehand. So for having them a chance to meet beforehand and really share their narratives, we found that there was a lot of great overlap.
That's quite true. I think when we share it, even amongst our friends and families, when we share our stories, we share that perspective. Like, let's say we have a family and friend gathering at a holiday, and something in particular, some little particular incident happened. It could have been something really funny. I always remember the time my uncle fell into the Christmas tree. And I see it from my perspective, but yet it's a story that we all can share. And then I get the perspective of my aunt, who says that my cousin pushed him. So we get different stories, of a same type of an incident, but you get that different perspective. So it's even in just speaking to each other and just casual conversation, we can get so much insight. But this in particular, this topic in particular gives so much insight. And safe space, that is something fantastic, because the whole narrative was about how do we come out safely. Safely. That I think was right on. And that was something that you wanted to emphasize, correct?
Yeah, safety is a really big thing. That's something that I try and I hold on to whenever I do our trainings is, safety is the top priority, especially when we do trainings with clinicians. And so we wanted to reflect that in our panel is like, yes, we can celebrate the significance of coming out, but also we have to provide the safety for folks that are willing to come out and thinking about what are some tools or what are some ways that allies can provide safe spaces for folks? Because from the panel, we saw that not a lot of perspectives were coming from, very positive coming out experiences. Some folks being outed, some folks just not feeling safe in their work environments, or having to constantly come out. So it brought up a conversation of, how do we change the culture in society to, offer safe spaces? How do we change the narrative so it doesn't feel like folks are pressured to come out, but rather whether or not you want to come out, we want to offer you that safe space to do so. And I think that was definitely highlighted in a lot of the panelists' resources and just overall narratives.
It certainly was, and resources. I'm glad you said that, because there were many, many resources which were available. And can our viewers go to San Mateo Pride, or is there another website that they can access to maybe get a list of those resources? And I also remembered that they mentioned some books which were available to read about coming out for parents in particular, who want to know how to deal with this as well, because it's quite an experience for them as well.
Yeah, so on our Pride Center website, we do have some resources that are available. We're also open to just, if you ever want to send us an email or contact us directly, that's the best way to definitely get resources directly. And as far as books goes, I don't have the books on hand, or I don't recall the titles, but if folks are interested in knowing about those resources, they can absolutely email me, or find my contact information on the Pride Center's website. I'm a resource hub. We say the Pride Center is a one-stop shop for resources. So as much as we can provide for the community, we'll do it.
That's true. They have pre-pandemic times. I attended several events at the Pride Center, as well as Outlook Video covered their grand opening and the anniversaries thereafter. So we've been very much in tune with things happening with the Pride, and do our best to share that with our viewers. But yes, does have a very many good resources. Though now via Zoom or via just looking at the website. So tell our viewers that website address.
Yeah, so it's sanmateopride.org.
Easy peasy. Okay, so folks, if you have any questions in regards to this particular topic, or others that you have about the LGBT community, you can learn a great deal there. Something else that, but I wish that there had been on the panel, and my only suggestion is that in the next panel, if you have for the next coming out, National Coming Out Day, is to be inclusive of some seniors. Mm-hmm. Seniors would be a good group to have together. That's a group which I attended in person pre-pandemic times, and it was nice to be able to see others, a lot of other gray hairs like me, attending, and just being able to share our stories as well. Our coming out stories, though again they get personally difficult, were quite different because of a different time. Now it seems that things are more progressive. Again, same-sex marriage. We have Congress critters who are openly out, and a variety of things that are more acceptable. But there's still struggles and a little bit different of a twist. So I think our stories need to be out there as well. So include that next time, would you?
Yes, definitely. I appreciate that suggestion. It's important to get older adult narratives in there, because far too often they're often ignored. So having that perspective, I think, would also really mesh well with other panelists whenever we reorganize and gear up for the next National Coming Out Day panel.
Yeah, well, seniors as well as LGBT people were kind of we were not really recognizable. I don't wear well, except for maybe a gay flag once in a while on my lapel pin there, but I don't walk down the street advertise that I'm lesbian. But it's nice to be accepted when that possibility comes up, when people ask when I get to know someone, oh, are you married? Yes, I have a wife. And then it's an opportunity to tell my stories as well. But it's a comfort zone as well. Everyone has to feel a good comfort zone on both respects. On that friend who might be asking, or a new acquaintance who might be asking, to yourself and how you're feeling comfortable, and also in the workspace. I'm glad you presented that. That was very important as well. Yeah. Terrific. All righty. Well, let's see. Let's talk a little bit about you. How long have you been with the San Mateo Pride?
Yeah. anniversary on October 28th. So I'll be there for a year, a little over a year.
All right, terrific. And has it always been in this fashion as teaching and leading?
Yeah, so I spent, I'm currently getting my master's in public health and in public health
Okay.
education. So a lot of the work that I do really reflects the work that I do in my curriculum. And so I'm really happy to be working with the Pride Center and developing training and education, but also putting on and hosting community events. That's part of, education, right? Is, getting the community together to, honor and reflect different, educational topics. And so working as both a lead trainer as well as an events coordinator gives me a little bit of freedom to, think about some events that would bring community members together and think about topics that I think would be important for community members to know about and, bringing them into this space. So it's a lot of, great reflection work in what I do in my work and then what I do in school.
Terrific, terrific. Well, kudos to you for that, because you're doing a wonderful job with you and in concert with Frankie are doing a wonderful job in bringing these things to our community. And the San Mateo Pride, just like it sounds, is in San Mateo. But again, we are diverse people and we're all over the Bay Area, all over the world, but we're all over, scattered all over the Bay Area. So in a sense, the pandemic, one of the positive things is that we can go to these events via Zoom, and such as we're bringing you this one. But is that how your events are happening now, or does the Pride Center plan on opening soon in person?
Yeah, so we have a couple, we'll be doing a couple of like office hours for like older adults. And so Ellen, who's our older adult coordinator, she'll be having some office hours on Mondays for older adults. And I believe
Ah, yes, Ellen Bloomfield. Yes.
yes, she's great. And a couple of the youth groups may be having some in-person, peer support groups. But for the time being, we're still, slowly working our way to figure out how we're going to transition to, opening. But for the time being, most of our events will be virtual, just out of safety for the community. But like you said, we really try and make it as accessible as possible. Like working with Coast Pride, and they work on the coast side, and so bringing folks from the coast side into these events. And previous events, we've had folks coming from, all the way from like the South, or, from the East Coast. We had a sex education workshop. And so working with the Q Corner there, having it virtual, we were able to get folks to stream in live or, come into that Zoom event from all over. So I understand, the fatigue around Zoom and, it can be very, very draining to be on computers. But at the same time, we found that having these events virtually and out of, safety for folks really gets diverse crowds to come in and, be able to join with us.
Well, safety first. I'm glad that that's your one of the main objectives, and safety first. And having said that, we wish you well and the center well. Thank you so very much for bringing these type of events. We look forward to other events that you have in the future, as well as next year's National Coming Out Day Pride event. So that will be terrific. Thank you. Thank you, Azisa. Thank you for all your work and joining Outlook Video.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Dan Jinks, and you're watching Outlook Video.
Good evening, I'm Paul Wysocki.
And I'm Elizabeth Birch. Welcome to Outlook, a lesbian and gay video magazine.
Outlook is 1 year old, and tonight we're going to take a look back at our first year of production.
We'll also welcome civil rights activist and attorney Mary Dunlap. But first, let's take a look at some of the events that have gone on around the Bay Area recently.
A group of 28 protesters held up traffic on the Golden Gate Bridge on Tuesday, January 31st, to protest the average person's relative inaction towards the AIDS epidemic. A spokesperson for the group, Stop AIDS Now or Else, said the protest was planned to wake up society's members that they have a responsibility to AIDS. The protest was nonviolent and no property was damaged. All 28 members of the protest were arrested.
The trustees of Wheeler Hospital have been warned that they face potential legal action by the ACLU and certain AIDS activists. The hospital comes up for possible sale or lease in mid-May when it closes. The trustees have announced that they plan to try to incorporate certain deed restrictions which would prohibit the use of Wheeler in treating AIDS patients and also for substance abuse and certain mental health conditions. Attorney Matt Coles of the ACLU has said the restrictions are clearly illegal. Also, Ben Schatz of National Gay Rights Advocates has commented that the restrictions are clearly violations of the Unruh Civil Rights Act as well as certain federal disability laws.
Giving Up the Ghost is the present production of Theater Rhinoceros in San Francisco. The play deals with the lives of 3 Latina women. Recently, Outlook's Didi Rodriguez interviewed Sherry Moraga, the playwright of Giving Up the Ghost.
Giving Up the Ghost is a play written by Sherry Moraga and is performed at the Theater Rhinoceros in San Francisco. It deals with the cultural forces, attitudes, and sexuality of 2 Latina women, Amalia and Mauricia, their love, and the ghosts that haunt them. Backstage, during a rehearsal at Theater Rhinoceros,
Outlook is 1 year old. As you know, we're an all-volunteer organization. We're quite proud of the fact that our crew today is almost exactly the same as it was when we started. Here's producer Bart Davis's tongue-in-cheek look at the past year.
From the beginning, Outlook has went to great lengths to bring stories of interest to the gay and lesbian community. I'm here at Edwards Air Force Base, where we're awaiting the arrival of the space shuttle.
We're talking with Vince Clark and Andy Bell of Erasure on the first night of 2 sold-out shows in the Bay Area.
Today we're in Santa Cruz and we're going to meet a self-defense instructor who's developing some interesting new techniques, both physical and psychological. And let's meet Tara Cronenberg.
We're fortunate today to be here speaking with Ilse Conrad, the founder of the first openly lesbian organization in Argentina.
Okay, we're here now with John Laird, who's the mayor of Santa Cruz. He's also on the board of directors of BAMAC.
Wait a minute. That was really stupid.
It hasn't always been easy.
Well, I'm certainly not good reading this.
Well, you're fine, but I mean, it's tying up your style, honey.
Okay. Well, in that case.
But it's always been a lot of fun. From Bennet Mark's insightful commentaries
Come out, wherever you are.
to our in-depth interviews.
Well, Joanne, I didn't get to all my questions about lesbian sex in restaurants.
Outlook will be there covering entertainment, sports, politics, and events that shape our community.
Today?
Oh yeah.
How'd you enjoy it?
Oh, I enjoyed it very much.
What was your favorite part?
Oh, I liked a little bit of everything. Yep. And you're all having a good time out here. That's good. God bless every one of you.
Outlook reporter Dan Carlisle has found a comfortable little spot just off Castro.
Gay communities all over the country have one thing in common, and that's the bar scene, the traditional place to get together. But here in San Francisco, we've got an option. It's called the Castro Country Club. If you're looking for a drug-free and alcohol-free environment, this is the place for you. It's on 18th Street, right off of Castro. Now, this is the place you go when you first arrive at the country club, and you hand over a buck, and that'll take care of your admission. Then just pull up a stool, have some coffee, and some good conversation. There are a number of comfortable rooms inside the Castro Country Club, and they each have a different activity. For instance, here are a couple of the local card sharks swapping tails and pretending to play cards. And if you'd like, for intellectuals, it's the nightly showing of She-Ra in the TV room. It's a must. When I come to the Castro Country Club, what I like to do is get a table by the window overlooking 18th Street, have a nice cup of coffee, relax, and watch the parade go by outside. Hope you enjoyed our little tour this evening. For Outlook, I'm Dan Carlisle.
Those are our stories for tonight. Join us in just a short while for our interview with civil rights activist Mary Dunlap. But first, a comment from our resident commentator, Bennet Marks.
Here's progress for you. The U.S. government has come up with a new, improved reason why homosexuals are bad security risks and shouldn't be given security clearances. At one time, the reason was that gays and lesbians were inherently unstable and just couldn't be trusted with secret information. Unfortunately, there came a day when the American Psychiatric Association said that, in fact, gay people were no more likely to be mentally unstable than anybody else. After that, it was hard to justify the government's position, so they went on to their next reason. Homosexuals could be blackmailed by foreign agents who found out about their secret sexual life. Unfortunately, more and more gay people were publicly coming out of the closet. This was particularly true of the gays and lesbians who were willing to sue the government over security clearances. Since it's difficult to blackmail a self-acknowledged homosexual over his or her homosexuality, the government had to step back briefly and turn the problem over to its most creative minds, who have now returned with the newest and most ingenious reason yet. Openly gay people should not be given security clearances because they might, someday, become involved in a relationship with someone who isn't openly gay, and they could be blackmailed over that. Mind you, they didn't say they wanted to just exclude people who were in relationships like that. They wanted to exclude all gays because they might someday be in such a relationship. Now, I don't think this reason will stand for very long. Sooner or later, someone's going to point out, probably in court, that straight people can also get involved in relationships they want to keep secret. For example, when the people are married and not to each other. So straight people are also subject to this threat of potential future blackmail, which would leave the pool of safe employees pretty small. But still, you have to admire the spirit, the tenacity, the sheer gutsiness that the United States government has brought to this pointless, bigoted, stupid attempt to discriminate against gays. Elsewhere in the news, John Tower's nomination as Secretary of Defense is in trouble because Tower has been seen publicly inebriated, frequently in the company of women who are not his wife. One of these women is rumored to be from an Eastern Bloc nation. This proves a theory of mine. Heterosexuals make lousy security risks.
We love to get mail from you. Email us at comments@outlookvideo.org.
To contact us by phone, call 408-293-3040, extension 205.
Visit our website at outlookvideo.org.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/outlookvideo.
And connect with us at facebook.com/outlookvideo.
Hi, now we're here with Mary Dunlap. Mary Dunlap is one of the best civil rights attorneys of our time. She's my personal favorite. She has appeared before the United States Supreme Court on 2 occasions, and she's also presently a Stanford visiting law professor. Although she has fought for the rights of many, she is usually most closely associated with gay and lesbian rights. Mary, welcome to Outlook.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
Mary, you're one of the best people I can think of to kind of give us a state of gay rights where we are. But I've heard you speak several times, and what I wanted to do is spend a little time getting more into your background and your upbringing and so on.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds fair. Sounds interesting.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Napa, then I grew up in Berkeley, then I grew up in San Francisco, and I'm still growing up in San Francisco.
I understand your father was an attorney, was county counsel in Napa.
He was city attorney for a number of years, and he was flamboyant and represented a lot of unpopular causes, and was something of a role model. And at the same time, he and I were also very much at odds with each other. It was a very adversarial relationship, and I think certainly part of my flair for advocacy came from arguing with him from the earliest stages. I mean, from being a very little kid arguing with him. I think in some kind of strange way I was doing legal reasoning as a little kid. I'm reputed to have said to the babysitter at the age of 3, "Oh, don't be facetious about something." And it's interesting because the word facetious occurs in a recent important Supreme Court decision on gay rights, where the gay cause is characterized as facetious.
That's the Hardwick decision?
Yeah. Justice Byron White chose to trivialize the position of people who are challenging the sodomy law by calling the privacy argument that Michael Hardwick, who was arrested in his bedroom, and others have made, a facetious argument, which I think is, it gives away a lot. I think it says a lot about the status of lesbians and gay men in law.
I know you've talked about Hardwick. I've always liked that you cut to the quick and you say, this is one of the cruelest decisions of this century. Why don't you just sum up quickly what Hardwick was about for viewers that may not know?
Briefly, Georgia has a so-called sodomy law, and the word sodomy is meant to conjure up the image of anal intercourse between two men without benefit of a condom. But in fact, this law prohibits all oral genital and all anal genital sexual contact, and that's a lot of sex. I mean, if we're to believe the studies, that's a set of sexual experiences that most people have.
I mean, who among us has
right?
not
I like to ask my voluntary audiences to raise their hand if they've violated the Georgia sodomy law, and usually I see lots of hands, most everybody in the room. Georgia had this law, and what happened was that Michael Hardwick was arrested in his bedroom for an act of oral sex, voluntary, adult, private, consenting, all of that. No commerce, no children, no coercion. None of the 3 C's that Professor Tribe, in arguing for Michael Hardwick, identified as conditions or restrictions on sexual freedom. And the court nonetheless upheld the right of the state of Georgia to massively restrict people's adult sexual autonomy. And I think I'm pretty sure that people still don't realize how traumatic that decision is to the body of law, to the average individual's expectation of privacy. I mean, I think people don't get it. It's a massive body blow.
Yes, and certainly not a massive blow to gays in particular. It was such an emotional decision for gays.
You know, that's very true, and I think people fail to realize how provocative that decision is, because what it does is it elevates to a level of rectitude and correctness the proposition that gay people are criminals in 25 or more of the 50 states, and 23 or 4 now have, enforced or enforceable sodomy laws of the Georgia type, meaning covering a lot of different kinds of sex. And theoretically, every state in the Union could reenact its law in light of Bowers versus Hardwick. Some of the AIDS pandemic hysteria sees its way into people wanting to recriminalize. And there's so much at stake in that case. It's hard to take it apart without just saying there's an awful lot there. I think that there are implications for Roe versus Wade and for the survival of the right of abortion choice, at least if the Supreme Court is going to be careful and consistent about the right to privacy. Everybody's sexual privacy was jeopardized and cut into by Bowers versus Hardwick.
Right. Lawrence Tribe is Professor Lawrence Tribe, who argued the case, Harvard Law School, and I always like that you make a lot of how he framed the issue.
Well, he framed the issue with great emphasis on the privacy of the bedroom. And we, some of us who wrote amicus brief, friend of the court brief, put a greater emphasis on the privacy of the individual to make an autonomous adult choice. I think bedrooms are only private where people are behaving in them in a way that's respectful of one another, that's nonviolent, that doesn't involve some degree of coercion or harm. I think the emphasis on autonomy of the adult, on making moral judgments, should have been